Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing podcast. Each week, John Kasman interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Kasman.
Welcome to Target Market Insights. I'm your host, John Kasman, and thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, if you're enjoying this podcast and this show, I need you to do me a quick favor and leave us that 5-star rating and review. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. All right. Now, today we're going to be talking to Zachary Beach. Zachary is an Amazon best-selling author of The New Rules of Real Estate Investing and co-host of the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. Now, he's a partner, COO, and coach at Smart Real Estate Coach. In September 2020, they'll be releasing a revised edition of Real Estate on Your Terms, which Zach will be co-authoring. Let's welcome to the show, Zach Beach.
John, thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive in, give your audience some great value, and that way we can give them a couple things to take away and start diving into some real estate. That way they can go out there and start doing some deals themselves.
Absolutely. I love that. So before we jump into the new rules of real estate investing, I want you to maybe just take a little bit of time, maybe take a minute or so and, describe yourself in your own words.
Young, handsome. That was only a couple words. Now that'd be something that my mom would say. But truly, I would say I'm ambitious, hardworking, persistent, committed would be some words I would describe myself as. And I think that most successful people, and everybody has success in their own right, and I'm not saying that I've reached success just yet, but most successful people would describe themselves in those terms in general, because in order to reach some successful level and to have some success, commitment, persistence, being hardworking are certainly attributes that you need to have.
I thought you were still talking about being handsome. So you're right. You do need hard work and other things like that. No, good points there. So Zach, let's talk a little bit about this book, right? The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. What is the book about?
Yeah, The New Rules of Real Estate Investing is 24 leading experts in different niches throughout real estate. And we talk about exactly that, the new rules of real estate investing. We're taking a look at the 21st century, like today's real estate investing world, not 10 years ago. So we dive into not only our niche, buying and selling on terms, but we bring you all the other experts. That way the reader can go through the book, have some good actionable items, and also be able to see all the different terms or all the different types of real estate all in one book. And that way they can make a really good decision on what niche they should get involved with, and then what steps they should take next in order to get involved in that niche.
So in interviewing 24 different speakers, authors, investors, right, from different disciplines, what were some of your key takeaways from talking to that many different people?
Key takeaways are most people, or all people, have a morning routine. All successful people that we've interviewed have a morning routine. Everybody has a story, especially a story that comes from they've dealt with some ups and some downs. And then everybody has a system on which they follow in order to continue a successful business.
So having that morning routine, having a story, and by story, I assume you mean obstacles, challenges, things that they had to overcome to achieve success, and then also creating systems in their businesses and their models to drive success. And I think that's really key, because we talk a lot about mindset, and as we get to our bullseye round, we'll start asking questions about daily habits and things like that. And, part of it was, and I kind of came to the same conclusion, that when you talk to successful people, one thing that becomes clear is they all live with kind of intention of how they spend their time, what they're doing in the morning, how they start their day. And if you're not doing that, it's something that you really need to think about, because this is not just guys on a podcast talking. These are observations from hundreds of conversations, if not thousands of conversations, with people who are very successful. So you have to start your day the right way, with a clear plan of what you're going to do, whether that's meditation, whether that is affirmations, whatever that plan or that process is. you have to start your day with intention. So I think that's a very great observation. You mentioned, obviously everyone has their own disciplines in real estate, and you can do so many things from wholesaling to syndication, fix and flips. As you looked at those 24 different approaches, was there one or two that just stood out to you that's a little bit different, or you were surprised by? Maybe you didn't know as much about how people worked in that space, and really surprised you with what you could actually do with a specific discipline or approach.
It's maybe a little selfish, but I would say out of that entire book, our niche is probably the one that most people don't know about, and most people don't know how to get involved in. Because when you say you could buy real estate with little to no money down and buy them, without having to own any property. Some deals like owner financing, sure, subject to, sure, you own the properties, but like lease options, little to no money down, it's like your Uber, because you don't own any property, but you control all the property and you're able to cash flow them with little to no risk, because you're not personally signing or guaranteeing, you're not going to banks, you're not putting any money down. When it comes to other niches, and again, the only niche that I've ever truly been involved in is terms. I didn't go through being a realtor. I didn't do fix and flips. I didn't do those things. My family has. So when I look at different niches, I always say, okay, what is the risk tolerance that is associated with that niche? Because the niche I'm already involved in has a very low, risk. And what's the upside? Most of them, there are high upsides but higher risks, or there's not as high of an upside with lower risks. So, for example, and this is not to knock anybody in any fashion. I think all niches involved in real estate all have their fit, and they all have their own personality and their own person. But like say wholesaling, there's little to no risk, but the upside is very little. You're talking about you're going to have to do like hundreds of deals in order to establish a real business and to profit. But we clearly see people out there that are churning out thousands of deals a year and have this conglomerate of a business, but their overhead is over the top. And then you have other niches like syndications and things like that. Syndications, another fantastic niche. I always am fascinated about that. But if you're not good at raising capital, or you're not comfortable raising capital, then you're stuck. So when you look at other types of niches, you start to say, okay, well, it kind of falls on the traditional way of doing real estate compared to our niche, which is untraditional. So if you look at that entire book, I would say that most people that if they were looking at from a blank slate and not knowing anything in real estate, they'd be like, well, these people that are doing these terms are the ones that are kind of opening my eyes, or maybe a little crazy.
No, I love it. You talked about a few different strategies, right? So I want to break those down for folks who are listening. You said subject to, you talked about terms. We've talked about syndication, which our listeners, if you're an avid listener, we talk about syndication all the time. But I do want to talk about subject to and terms in particular. And you mentioned lease to own as well. So explain kind of those three. I know two of them are pretty much the same thing, but why don't you explain those three, and we can dive a little bit more into your specialty.
Yeah, so as a family business, and what we lock arms with and who we work with around the country, we focus on terms deals, which tend to fall into three categories: lease option, owner financing, and subject to deals. So a lease option, from a very simplified point of view, is it just means that you're agreeing upon a price with a seller. You're then taking over any and all responsibility of that property with little to no money down. You're then taking over. You then take over any and all responsibility, and then on and before a specific end date, you cash them out. So it's like a delayed cash sale. You have two pieces to the business. You got a lease for a period of time, and you have an option to purchase on the property, which gives you full control of the property, which also you get the ability to sublease. And that's how we then sell on a rent to own to buyers that need time in order to get financing. And that's how you're able to create what we call three distinct paydays. And these paydays come on all three deals. Did you want me to dive into those paydays? You want me to hit those other things first, and we'll take that next?
Well, I mean, we're there. Let's hit the paydays and we'll come back to it too.
Yeah. So the three distinct paydays are once you go sell to a tenant buyer, you're able to collect a non-refundable deposit, which is your payday number one. That's a non-refundable deposit. Payday number two is the spread that you're able to create between what you have to pay the seller or the seller's mortgage company and what you are able to collect from your tenant buyer. And then payday number three is the principal pay down, which you're receiving, and any additional premium that you have left over from the non-refundable deposit from the seller. From the buyer. So that way you create three distinct paydays. On average, our deals are going to be roughly $75,000, all three paydays. In lower markets, say $50,000. In higher markets, you have some deals that are almost $200,000 on all three paydays.
So the non-refundable deposit, you have the spread, or basically the amount of money you're making on a monthly basis through profits and the payments. And then you mentioned the principal pay down, basically when you close or sell the transaction, the amount of money that's left over for yourselves. So three paydays, that's a great business model, because you mentioned wholesaling and just differentiating between wholesaling. Wholesalers are great at finding great deals, right? But then they give it to someone else to go and execute. So they have one payday. And in this scenario, you're able to still get in with very little of your own money, maintain, control of the asset, but get three paydays. And I think it's a really unique option, especially if you're wholesaling right now. We're very interested in wholesaling. This is a really unique alternative that can allow you to, control the property, continue to make money for a longer period of time, as opposed to only making money when you wholesale.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that switch over from our niche to from wholesaling, or they add another feather to their cap, because they're more than likely tossing away a lot of deals because it doesn't necessarily fit inside their box. Like, perfect example. So let's say you come across a property that somebody is selling the property for roughly what they owe. Well, it's a good opportunity for somebody that's in the terms business, because they know that they can buy that property subject to the existing loan, which is another one of our options. So buying subject to the existing loan simply means that you close on the property and you're buying the property for exactly what somebody owes. You're acknowledging that there's a mortgage on it. And then you then close on the property, and then you just are contractually obligated to continue to make those monthly payments. So you hold title, the seller still stays on the mortgage. So again, you're not going to a bank, you're just closing on the property. Now you have full control of the property. And now somebody else that would have thrown away that deal, now you have a really good deal, because now you have this long-term deal, no end date. And over a period of time, as we all know, there's going to be principal that's going to get paid down on that mortgage. And if you're in an appreciating market, which if you hold on a property for a long enough period of time, you're going to go through a cycle where there's definitely going to be some appreciation. And then over that period of time, you're going to be able to create a profit where you're going to be able to sell that house in the future. And in the meantime, you can cash flow it, and you can do that exit strategy, such as selling rent own.
Yeah, the subject to is another great strategy. So let's hit the third one. You talked about subject to. We've talked about lease to lease option. Sorry. And what was the third strategy?
Owner financing.
Owner financing. So owner financing is relatively straightforward, but just really quickly explain that for our listeners.
Yeah, so owner financing means that you're going to close on the property. The seller is going to hold, let's just say for this example, the property is free and clear. There's no debt on the house. You're going to close on the property. The seller's now going to hold a first position, or they're going to be the bank, basically. They're going to hold the mortgage. You'll have to construct the terms with them of that mortgage. And then they hold that position. You're now the homeowner, and now you can do with what you want with that property. Now, we buy properties relatively two different ways, but you can always get creative with these types of deals. But we're typically we're able to construct, say, shorter term owner financing deals. So I'm talking like 5 years, 4 to 5 years, with principal only payments, meaning that the entire payment that you're making to the seller is principal only, no interest. We're able to, that was actually one of our main focuses for a period of time, and we're able to construct some fantastic deals. As you can imagine, the principal coming off of these houses, even if it's 4 or 5 years, is significant. Typically, if you have a property that's over 200,000 and your principal pay down's over 1,000, then you're going to be able to construct in all three paydays a six-figure deal. And now what we've been able to do over a period of time now is we're now constructing longer term deals. So we're not saying, hey, we're going to get principal only payments for this entire time, but now we're able to construct, say, 10-year, 20-year, 30-year notes, which we're looking for that long period of time. But of course, you're paying principal and interest on that. So you get two different types of methods you can take a look at. And you more than likely, as you get better at these deals, you could probably convert some of those owner financing deals that are short term to longer term notes in the future as well.
Yeah. So how do you, when you approach a deal, what's your either criteria or process to say, hey, this deal is great for a lease option, or this deal is great for subject to, or this deal is great for seller financing? How do you approach that?
Yeah, it comes down to two things. And this may sound overly simple, but it's going to be the seller's motivation and the actual finances associated with the property. So number one, and I just hopped off the phone with a student of mine, and we were talking about, he was over analyzing deals because he was looking at basically our lead funnel. He was looking at our lead source. So what our lead sources gives you, names, numbers, all of that. What he was doing, he was diving too deep into the actual property before he made the outbound call. And I said, the property actually doesn't matter unless you can actually help out the seller. So first you got to focus on the seller, what the seller's problem is, and can you solve that solution? Because clearly, and this is a script of ours, but 99% of people we buy from want a traditional sale. I mean, most people aren't going to wake up in the morning and say, I want to sell my property on a lease option, or I want to sell it subject to the existing loan and keep my name on the mortgage, or I want to hold the mortgage. Most sellers aren't going to say that. They want close quickly with the realtor, getting full price. So that's the reality that we work in. So what I first and foremost will do is work on, okay, what's the seller's motivation? What's the current situation associated with the property? And can we solve that problem? And if we declare, both me and the seller, because it's essentially a partnership or a long-standing relationship, and once we declare that we can solve that problem, then what we're doing is we're diving more into the finances associated with the property, because then we're going to be able to construct the terms for buying it. So if you got somebody that's motivated and you got a good solution for them, okay, then if the property has debt on it, is it going to be a lease option, or is it going to be subject to the existing loan? Well, that's going to determine on whether the seller is open to giving up title. So it's really a back and forth conversation. If there's no debt on the property, well, again, are they open to giving up title? Do they want zero responsibility of the property, or do they want to continue to control the property from holding title? Well, if they want to give up title, owner financing. If they don't want to give up title, well, then we settle on a lease purchase.
Got it. And that makes a lot of sense there. And I think, to your point, understanding that motivation, I mean, that's going to be key to figuring out how you can do a creative deal. Most people do want to have that traditional sale because that's what they know. They know, I give it to a real estate agent, they'll list it on the MLS, they'll sell it, they'll get top dollar for it. That's what I want to do. And you talked about that motivation. Because most people do want to do that, I know that most people, if they are serious about selling, they probably do that. What are the reasons people either can't do that or decide not to do that and work with you or other folks who are looking at these creative options?
Yeah, so a lot of sellers that we work with have expired from the MLS. So for one reason or another, probably more than likely, was price. Everybody wants to blame the realtor, but the truth is the market speaks. And then if the seller doesn't get what they want, then they eventually expire. So what are reasons that people expire? It's price, functionality of the property. It could just be timing. So expired listings, fantastic motivation because they've been through the ringer and now they're looking for alternative options. If it's free and clear, you're talking about sellers that are financially independent, meaning that they're good financially and they want to create a deal with that property in order to get the most equity or the most net profit. We could certainly do that. We can pay full market value. We can create terms where they're able to get cash flow on the property as long as they have the ability to wait for a lump sum, or if they're willing to hold on to a note for 5, 10, 20, 30 years so they can get their price. Or somebody, of course, this falls more into like the subject to the existing loan. Maybe they are in a position where they need some mortgage relief. And they have 2 properties, they've already moved, they're paying 2 mortgages, or maybe they're arrears, and they're looking for some mortgage relief. We can go in a gamut or array of different scenarios, but those are some common ones.
Got it. So you just have a conversation with the seller, really learn more about their situation, what they're interested in, what those triggers are. And then from there, you can kind of craft a solution that may work for both of you.
Yeah, they don't call it creative financing for no reason. I mean, in order to be involved in this type of niche, you got to be creative. Nothing necessarily fits inside a box. It's all just really what you and the seller are able to agree upon in taking all of the information which is given around their situation in the real estate itself, and then figuring out the best terms that you can create.
Makes a ton of sense there. So Zach, you probably get this often, right? There are people who are looking to get started, people who, have been listening to podcasts, reading books and other things, and just haven't been able to pull the trigger for whatever reason. As a newer person, when you were starting out in real estate, talk to me about kind of some of the things that helped you pull the trigger, and what advice would you give for that listener who's trying to find the edge needed to get started in real estate investing?
Yeah, there's a couple steps that I always recommend for anybody when they're ready to pull the trigger within real estate. It's number one, find the niche that you best relate to. Maybe it is wholesaling. A lot of people come in that door. Maybe it is terms. Maybe it is multifamilies, or maybe it's syndications. Whatever best fits your goals, find. And then once you decide that, find the best mentors that are doing it. I mean, with today's society, you're able to find mentors so easily, and then follow their system. But this always comes with a warning, right? I mean, because it's so easy to find mentors, you got to make sure that you're really strict on who you find, because you got to make sure that they're in the trenches still, and they're actually doing what they say they're doing with today's model. So find a niche, find a mentor, and then once you do, then you have to put the blinders on. You can't, because there is so much information out there, everybody gets shiny object syndrome. So you really have to believe in a system and then follow that system for at least 3 to 5 years. I mean, you're talking about building a business. Now, if you would go to anybody that was going to invest in you in any business, and you were getting people to invest in you, if you said, hey, I'm just going to give this a try, you would never be able to get people to invest in you. But if you say, hey, I'm going to dedicate 3 to 5 years at this niche, and I'm going to do whatever it takes in order to build a successful business, well, now you're putting yourself in a position to be successful. So niche, mentor, and then follow the system.
No, those are great tips. I especially love the time frame, because I think when most people hire a mentor, they assume, all right, 3 to 6 months, I should have this deal, or I should be here, or whatever. And it does take time. And that's anything from, what you're talking about with creative financing up to syndication. It takes a little bit of time to get that traction. So there really isn't a get rich quick solution in real estate. There's certainly things where you can get more traction sooner as far as deal flow and things like that. But if you're doing this for the right reasons and to build a business and to really grow, you got to be willing to invest some time and allow that time to go. And I know many folks get frustrated when they don't see results right there right away. What advice do you give them when they're taking the right steps? They're on the right path, right? They're listening to their mentor, but it's been 6 months or 9 months or 12 months and they don't have the results just yet. What do you say to someone like that?
All right. So I'm glad you brought that up, because this is something that our family has been dedicated to closing, and this is what we call the gap. So that's the difference between somebody buying a product and somebody actually doing a deal, is what we call the gap. And we're working on bridging that gap, and it's been an absolute mission of ours right now. So that's why we've created the business that we have, in order to lock arms with people in the trenches, because we truly believe it's immersion. It's not necessarily consulting that gets you deals. It's the immersion of being able to have your mentor in the trenches with you, talking to sellers, talking to buyers, helping you deal structure. That's going to allow you to get to a place more quickly and to build a business. But the other thing is, what we have found is it's not necessarily the real estate teachings that stop people from doing deals and building a business. It's typically the entrepreneurial skills that you have to learn and the entrepreneur mindset that you need to acquire that's going to get you to doing deals. So I've seen people do deals 90 days and then have a successful business and build it up rather quickly. And that's just because they came into the business with other skills, or maybe they've had another business before, so they already understand those entrepreneurial skills. Because when you're going from somebody that's, an employee to now building a business and being self-employed, there's such a huge gap in the type of skills and the type of personality and the type of mindset that you need to have day in and day out to be in that space. So I would say that if you have the right mentor and you're doing the right things, then you probably need to work on your mindset and those other additional skills in order to get you some more deals done to build the business. Those would be the things I'd be looking for and working on.
No, listen, phenomenal. I couldn't agree more. I think that was one of the challenges I even faced, when I made that transition, because I worked in corporate America, W-2 job, and, followed the system, which was great, but there were nuances of, figuring out how to do those things from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I understood it, but didn't fully embrace some of the smaller, minute details of how to spend the day, how to go and, make sure the time that we were spending was on the right activities versus just being busy, right? And just, moving forward. And I see a lot of people get caught up in that as well, where they're doing stuff every day, but are they focusing on those initiatives that are getting them closer to their goals? Are they looking for deals? Are they constantly, reaching out to sellers or to brokers or to wholesalers or wherever you're getting your deals from? Are you consistently tracking that? Are you working towards that? If you're raising money or working with investors, are you having conversations? Are you creating content to put out there to attract capital and to attract investors? But are you doing those things that are at the core of the business, or are you doing stuff that is more on the periphery, but doesn't actually impact, the business? It's not either bringing you money or bringing you deals, and I think you have to make sure that you're spending the bulk of your time doing the activities that are going to drive the business, and not just building a website, or not just, doing the stuff that is busy and it looks cool and it's great to show everybody your business card, but did you call anybody about a deal? So make sure you're focusing on the right activities is the other piece to it.
Yeah, and especially when you're starting out as a solopreneur, you're two different people, right? Well, you're actually the entire business, but let's say you have to look at it from an angle of you're two different people. You're the employee, which means that you need to be focused on the key tasks that eventually you can hire out, but the key tasks that are going to drive business. But then also you need to take a step back at least once a week and say, how do I look from a CEO perspective and a business owner and say, what do I want this business to look like in the future? How can I build out the vision, the culture, and start building that along with it? And then by kind of marrying those two together, you're then going to be that solopreneur. And then eventually you'll be able to, allocate some tasks and start looking for, who I can delegate this to instead of what. So it's just, there's that whole dynamic that comes with it. And that's why it takes people, an extra year, especially if they come from a W-2 job, an extra year to build a business, because they're going through such a huge learning curve. And you're in a whole new world. It's like going to Mars. I mean, you got to learn the basics too, along with also building the business.
All right, Zach, let's move on to our bullseye round. You ready?
Got it.
How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success?
I think that all of our failures set us up for success if we do it right. I fail more often than I actually see success. I've learned that failure is more of like a stepping stone. It's not in the way, it's on the way. So any single time I've had some success, I've failed significantly before that.
Give me one example of just something that didn't work out well, but ultimately ended up being a good thing for you.
Yeah. Okay. So if I look back in my past, I actually dealt with addiction, which actually is what led me down the road to personal development, which I think has been the building blocks of me as an entrepreneur now. So if I didn't go through that, then I wouldn't be looking for, or I wouldn't have done such heavy research and focus on mindset and personal development. So some will call that a failure. I call that a life lesson. But I made a change, and some huge positive things came about it. So if you kind of go all the way back to when I was 18 to 21, that'd probably be the biggest one so far in my life.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate your vulnerability there. All right, give me give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend the most.
Right now, I would say Evernote, as far as like an application, is like one of my favorites, which just gives me ability to every single thing that I'm reading or studying to put it all in one place. And then, as you mentioned before, like producing content, then that's where I get a lot of my content is from everything I read or listen to, and it just allows me to store it all in one place. I'll give you a bonus one. As you're growing out a team, I highly recommend Slack. Slack has been one of the best things that we've ever implemented in our business for communication.
All right, give me a book that you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
The Surrender Experiment. Have you ever read that?
I've not heard of it.
Oh, it's the guy who developed WebMD. He's a yogi, and it's actually a pretty crazy book, but it's basically all about his life and how he's surrendered to the universe. And then that has led him to be able to accomplish, he's a billionaire now, but that's how it's led him to accomplish all these goals. Is he didn't necessarily set these goals. He just surrendered to the universe. And as things came his way, he continued to focus on them and give his full effort. So it sounds a little woo-woo, but some really great lessons in it.
All right, give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
So every single Sunday, I plan out my entire week, and then every Monday or every morning, I then double check and go through my calendar to make sure that only items on there that are going to directly move towards my priorities are on there. So I'm huge when it comes to managing my time.
What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
That, yeah, it's definitely harder than you think it is. Like when people say you're gonna put in the work, you're putting in the work. You get a heck of a lot of benefits, but being like an entrepreneur is a whole new lifestyle.
What advice would you give to a smart, driven college student about the real world?
It is what you make it. Just if you want something, go out there and create it. You don't have to go the normal route, and I actually recommend you don't go the normal route.
What's something you're curious about right now?
I'm curious about everything. Right now, I'm focusing a lot on health. I was a personal trainer for a while, but I'm redirecting a lot of some of my energy to that. And I'm also extremely curious about building businesses. So I'm always focused on how to scale and grow our business and the next.
All right, so I know you're out in Rhode Island. You got to give me the best place to grab a bite.
I'm a huge fan of Midtown Oyster Bar. And it's in Newport, Rhode Island. That's where we are. It's a fantastic city to be a part of. Midtown Oyster Bar, they have a great salmon BLT.
All right, sounds delicious. So listen, I had Jimmy Murray on the show, another Rhode Islander, a little while back, and he told me about coffee milk. Are you a coffee milk drinker as well?
I don't drink too much milk anymore, but growing up, yeah, I loved coffee milk.
So you drank this as a kid too, growing up?
See, I'm from Central Mass, but I didn't realize that was just a Rhode Island thing until I moved down here. But yeah, I drank a lot of coffee milk, strawberry milk. I was a farm boy. My grandfather owned a pig. My great grandfather owned a pig farm, so we always drank a lot of milk.
Awesome. So it was the first time I had ever heard of coffee milk, and I was like, okay, sounds interesting.
That's good.
So, yeah, it sounds good. Well, listen, this has been good talking to you, Zach. I appreciate you really talking to us about, just the different strategies. And for our listeners, I know you guys are re-releasing the book. that really taps into the different strategies, the new rules of real estate investing. Where can listeners get that book, and when will it be available?
Yeah, so the new rules of real estate investing is available right now, and the old version of Real Estate on Your Terms is also available. So what we'll do is anybody that's listening to the show will be happy to give you the book for free, like an actual book. I'm a big fan of reading a book. All you have to do is go to newrulesforfree.com. That's newrulesforfree.com. We'll pay for the shipping. We'll pay for the handling. You just got to go there, type in your information, and we'll send it out to you. That way you can take your first step, if any, into real estate investing.
And Zach, how can our listeners get in touch with you if they want to learn more about some of the stuff you do?
Yes, I'm more than okay if you just go ahead. You can shoot me an email at zach@smartrealestatecoach.com. You'll get an answer from my assistant, Kristen, who will take care of you. But the best place to get started as far as like diving into information, get the book, or when you got 45 minutes, dive into our free webinar. Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/webinar. Dive in there, and you're going to get a bunch of free gifts. And then if you have questions based on that, let's book a strategy call. And let's chat about how we can get you started.
Sounds good. Zach, a lot of great information today. You gave so much information about how to get started. I love to kind of going backwards a little bit, but how to transition from W-2 job to entrepreneur, some of the, not mistakes, but just some of the challenges that people make, especially when you hire a mentor and, if you're not seeing the progress. So maybe it's some of your own steps that you need to look into, and then really getting into kind of the process that you guys use to buy on terms, which is, lease options, subject to deals, as well as owner selling or owner financing. So really figuring out ways to get into these deals where you can get paid multiple ways, which I think is a great strategy, especially if you're looking to get in with little to none of your own money. It's a great way to just really get infinite returns. So a strategy that I think many people should be looking into more to add it to the repertoire. Might not be a fit for many deals or all your deals, but if you can employ it on some of your deals, it can make huge returns. So Zach, thank you again for coming on Target Market Insights and spending this time with us today. We hope you have a good one, okay?
Thank you.